This is the Dery Brothers Tribecast, a podcast for diehard Cleveland Indians fans. Presented to you by WaitingForNextYear.com. Now, here are the hosts, Matt and Todd Dery.
Oh, it's that time of the week, everybody. Another edition of the Dery Brothers Tribecast. Fired up on a Sunday night. Matt and Todd with you following a Tribe week in which, TD, we said it, had to go 4-2 against the White Sox and the Orioles, or at least 5-1, 4-2. They go 4-2 today. Sugar Shane, a 15 strikeout, complete game shutout. Fantastic performance as the Indians beat the hapless Orioles 10-0. How are you tonight?
I'm still recovering from last night's events. Down in the flats, celebrating our good friend, the great Molly Goldberg's bat mitzvah. It was fantastic. It was great to see you. But the good news is, not only did we have a great time with great friends to celebrate the show producer's daughter, executive producer, but the Tribe took 3 out of 4 this weekend. Which, we'll take. I said 6-1. 5-1 this week was what I expected. 4-2 is not terrible. We'll take 4-2. You go 4-2 every week, and things are all good. So, on to the Oakland A's.
Yeah, and this weekend, Todd, was obviously highlighted by, Oscar Mercado finally getting an opportunity. I found it very interesting that today Tito had him in the lineup against a right-hander, albeit it was Jeffrey. It's funny. Our Jeffrey, it's Jeffrey. Their Jeffrey is Jeffrey. But Jeffrey Ramirez, who started for the Orioles, who's pretty much a tomato can, but a right-hander. And Tito had Mercado in the lineup hitting 8th. The Tribe is 4-0 since #FreeOscar has been in the lineup. The day he sat out was Friday, and the Indians lost to the Orioles. So at least they're beating up on the Patsies. Baltimore's bad, and today they needed a laugher like this.
I will say, after watching a weekend, minus yesterday's game, which I only watched the condensed game, which I love, by the way, on the MLB app. After watching a weekend of the Baltimore Orioles, or 4 games, that's one of the worst teams, maybe the worst team I've ever seen.
They're horrible.
They are terrible. Their lineup's terrible. They have no starting pitching. Their bullpen sucks. And they're trapped. Now, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the lineups the Indians used to put out in like 83, 84. When you and I were going with Dad and we were the only 3 people in our section in the upper deck. That team is garbage. And there was an article I read this week in The Athletic by Ken Rosenthal, and it was about the Orioles franchise.
Did we ever have a guy though? Did we ever have a guy though in the '80s as good as Trey Mancini? Because he's pretty good. But he's all they have.
What about Thunder Thornton, 1.1?
I mean, I guess Joe Carter. I'll tell you one thing: if the Indians are still looking for that right-handed power bat at the deadline, I don't know if the Orioles would part with Trey Mancini, but I would take him.
I would too, but he's kind of a butcher in the outfield. He's really more suited for DH, and he kind of came into his own. But in the meantime, yeah, Mancini's a nice player, but that team's garbage. This article I read, Ken Rosenthal in The Athletic, was talking about the problems they're having as an organization, how nobody comes to the park anymore. They're basically at 50% attendance of what they had, during their run where they made the playoffs in the 2000s, 3 or 4 years in a row. And nobody wants to go to that stadium anymore. The nostalgia's worn off, and that they have one of the worst minor league systems, too. Who really has a
minor league system?
But honestly, that team's going to be bad for a decade. So as bad as the American League Central is, these American League East teams get to play that swag outfit 19 times for the
Oh yeah. No, it's a shit show. And Means is pretty good. We saw Dylan Bundy the other day actually have a decent outing against us on Friday. He's not terrible. The rest of these guys, I had no idea who they were. Dwight Smith I've seen. Chris Davis is a mess, hitting 179 today. The Golden Sombrero with the 4 Ks. And you got to give credit to Shane Bieber. Sometimes in games like that, Todd, and you know this, when you're going up 2-0, 4-0, 5-0, 7-0, 10-0, you let up a little bit because you're looking at the scoreboard, and all the kid did was, like we said, 15 punch-outs or punchies, as Rick Manning would say, 5 hits, no runs. His ERA is at 3.22, and for all the issues that the Indians have had with starting pitching injuries, with Kluber being out, with Clevenger out, we'll give you an update on him in a second. the starting pitching has been pretty darn good, and we've seen some depth with Cousin Jeffrey, and of course Pletko pitching well on Saturday. I know it's the Orioles, but now you get the A's coming in, the Rays. Those are two teams that always seem to pitch pretty well. Tampa's banged up. I'll preview some of that pitching matchup coming up, but I don't think the Indians are going to see Blake Snell, which would be a huge break because he's probably going to pitch Wednesday against the Dodgers. So, they should make some hay, the Indians should, this week.
The schedule's been very kind to the Indians, and they have to take advantage of it. We've talked about that. Getting back to Bieber, he was fantastic today. And that's the thing. He's not a strikeout pitcher, and he K'd 15.
15.
Probably never. I mean, this is not again, he'll probably never strike out 15 guys ever again in a game. I'm hoping that's not the case. But the fact that you got Bieber, 15 strikeouts, not allowing an earned run, complete game shutout, and it's a good thing. Obviously, only 107 pitches. Give the bullpen a nice day off. We'll take it. What was nice was I was reading. Mandy Bell actually had a conversation after the game, and I guess Bieber was trying to dodge Carl Willis at the end of the eighth because he didn't want to get pulled. He wanted that complete game shutout.
Yeah.
And then basically he said, then he found me and said, "How much does it mean to you?" And Bieber said, "A lot." And that was the end of the conversation. And they sent him back out for the ninth. So good for them for sending him back out. It was 10-0. You let him finish. No big deal.
Dery Brothers Tribecast for another week. We are brought to you by waitingfornextyear.com. That's where you can find the podcast. Also by our friends at Groove Ride. Todd will tell you about them coming up at Groove Ride, RYDE.com. Great to see Frankie Lindor get hot again, Todd. He's up to 294, 2 for 4 today. He was moving around like PK on the dance floor last night. I mean, he's been...
Oh, my Lord.
He's been fantastic. Now at 822 with the OPS. Cargo hitting the ball harder, seems to be getting robbed every game. And Carlos Santana, let's talk about it. This guy's a god. He's an absolute stud. I know the average is coming down because he was hitting 400 at the start of the year, but big-time insurance home run yesterday. Today, again, going deep in the third inning. He's been a godsend from both sides of the plate.
I said it in a tweet today after he crushed that homer, and he had the big homer in the eighth yesterday, like you said. Where would this offense be without Carlos Santana? He has bailed this team out time and time again, and he just keeps producing. He's had a couple of down periods where he's taken like a 1 for 20, but other than that, it's just the consistency. He's been so terrific. As for Frankie, I think we all knew that Frankie was going to be becoming himself. He just, he didn't have spring training. It was going to take some time. So it's good to see him get going. I know Cargo had a decent weekend. And I think it was Thursday that he had the 3 hits?
Yeah.
They were all like kind of, duck snorts. I love him defensively. I really do. I still think June 15th is the drop-dead date before you make a decision on him. And it really just comes down to when Naquin is healthy. What are they going to do? Because I'm sure we will talk about this upcoming, but, Oscar Mercado should be playing every day. And, he to me is here to stay. And I'd much rather see him out there than, the end-of-the-line Carlos Gonzalez. But I will give Cargo credit. He continues to battle, and he, again, like I said, that defense he plays out there in left field is terrific. It's really rendered Jake Bauers into a designated hitter because there's Jake's still learning how to play left field where Cargo is a Gold Glover out there.
Do you realize, and I said this because he's been hitting the ball harder, he got robbed all weekend. There was a play that Wilkerson kid made on him.
Oh, my God. I saw it today. It was incredible. What a cat. That Wilkerson kid didn't even look like he looked at the ball when it went into his glove.
Yeah. Well, he made 2 plays on Gonzalez this weekend, today too, but I don't think we realize that Cargo's OPS is actually lower than Jose Ramirez. J-Ram's at 585, which is just putrid. And Gonzalez is at 584. So think about it, 25-20. Yes, the Twins are playing well. Thank you, Edwin Encarnacion, for helping us out today, hitting that 3-run bomb. Minnesota's bullpen's a mess, but they're hitting the shit out of the ball. and they blew the doors off the Mariners over the weekend. They took 3 out of 4. Today lost 7-3. So Seattle beats them. So the lead's down to 4.5. But Minnesota's been really, really good, even with Nelson Cruz now on the injured list and all that. But you think about the Indians and all the problems they've had offensively, and some of the games we've seen them. The base running's been bad. Jose booting balls at third base this weekend, and yet 25-20. There are 9 teams out of the 15 of the American League at or below 500. The Indians are not one of them. Cleveland is one of the 6 above. So think about that. I mean, I know it was beaten up on the Orioles weekend, but still, there's room for improvement. But I'm not ready to cash the checks and close the account on this team just yet.
Yeah, of course not. You can't. It's still the middle of May here. But one thing, you sent me a text to a link. I think it was Joel Sherman, who
yes,
from the New York Post, and it was basically talking about how this year is turning into last year once again, where essentially it's 6 teams playing for 5 spots essentially, and not including the Indians, because the American League again is the haves and the have-nots. Houston is 8.5 games ahead in the West. They've already won that division. The rest of those teams are garbage. Really, the Rays, Yankees, and Red Sox, are right there at the top of the East, and basically the Twins and the Indians, and that's it. Nobody else is even competing. So it's going to be an interesting situation come later in the season, and it's also going to be interesting to see how many teams decide to sell at the deadline. And as we talked about in the past, there's still just the one hard deadline now of July 31st. There's no more waiver August 31st trade deadline. So it's going to be interesting considering the fact that there's essentially just those teams that are in it. And anybody else who thinks they're in it is fooling themselves.
I'd be interested in seeing what the Rays are going to do, because that's always the team that ends up selling, where they're sexy, they look good at the beginning of the year, and they've got a lot of good young pieces. And we know about Yandy. By the way, Yandy left the game today against the Yankees, got hit in the hand with a pitch. X-rays were negative. I'm assuming he'll play Thursday and be back in Cleveland and a part of that action. I'm sorry. Is it Thursday or Friday we're playing them?
Thursday.
It is Thursday.
I'll be there. I'll be there to give Yandy the standing ovation he deserves. The treatment he got from his manager.
By the way, what was it a couple weeks ago? Who came back and got a real crappy ovation, or like no ovation at all? Was that Edwin?
It was Edwin.
What is that? Our fans suck. God, I know some of you are.
Our fans are C-. Nothing. James,
how does Edwin?
Nothing.
How does Edwin not get a hand? I mean, that guy was great for 2 years.
I gave him a standing ovation.
Got to.
The only person in the stadium, but I gave him a standing ovation. He did everything he could. By the way, can we get him back at the trade deadline?
I would love it. Yeah.
Right-handed power bat, right for you?
RHPB, always needed.
Speaking of right-handed bats, before we move forward, how about Gio Urshela?
This won't last, but this won't last.
Yes. Say what you want to say. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it won't last. And no one's a bigger Giovanni Urshela fan than me, but this is not going to last. He's beloved in New York, but my God, I think he's on a hot streak for sure. But you really think this is going to last?
I don't. I mean, here's the thing, though. Sometimes these guys get out of situations and they find themselves in New York, and all of a sudden they're great. This could also be Shane Spencer. So I'm not, I'm not. Listen, I get mad about Yandy, and they think they screwed him. They gave away. They gave Gio 8,000 chances. He just could never hit. That wasn't,
Well, that and he cost us the Yankees series a couple of years ago, throwing the ball over the head of everybody.
Well,
wasn't that Game 5?
Series that in the season where Yandy played third every day in September and then didn't make the playoff roster, so Gio and Eric Gonzalez could take over third.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I just want to read you one thing, though. Going into yesterday, I tweeted this out I looked it up. Gio versus J-Ram. So Jose Ramirez in 162 at-bats has a slash line of 191, 286 with a 589 OPS, 4 homers and 13 RBIs. In 98 at-bats, so 64 less at-bats, Gio 347, 398 with an 898 OPS with 2 homers and 16 RBIs, and playing stellar defense for the Yankees. It's unbelievable. If you would have told me 2 years ago at this time that, hey, guess what? One of these two guys is going to be hitting 191 and one of these two guys is going to be hitting 347 and be the toast of their team, who would it be? I certainly wouldn't have picked Gio.
No, and that is the beauty of baseball, and it's the unpredictability, and we talk about bullpens all the time. Now the Indians' bullpen is solid. It's got a lot of the same guys from last year, whatever. But I don't see this staying for either guy. Jose Ramirez, you did those numbers based off of yesterday. So here's Jose again going 0 for 3 today, albeit he had a nice at bat with a walk today that got an RBI, but now down to 189. So that's the thing, Todd. I just don't understand. Jose hits the walk off against the White Sox 2 weeks ago, and you're like, all right, finally it's going to click. And then he starts hitting the ball hard, and then some of the at-bats, even this weekend against the Orioles, it's like jumpy at the plate, swinging at that high fastball, which he held off against Yanoa today, or Eno, or however you pronounce it. He's garbage. And got the walk. But at some point, they moved him down to 5th, which I think Tito had to do. But they have to give him a day off, don't they, eventually? The guy's still playing like every single day.
I used to say the same thing to you about they can't give him a day off because he's going to hit, but he's not hitting. He should take a day off. I totally agree with that. And I am very concerned about him. He can't lay off high fastballs. In I think it was his first inning at bat. Lindor doubled, Kipnis singled, Carlos singled. We're rolling. Cargo got robbed on that play in center field, which is the RBI sac fly. Up comes J-Ram, and
I think he struck out on 3 pitches. Yeah,
stood up with the glove high, and he couldn't lay off that high fastball. And it's like Tyler Naquin 2016 post inside the park homer. Hey, let's throw him high fastballs because he can't lay off of them. I'm very concerned. This team, we keep saying this. I keep saying it. We're hammering it, and everybody keeps telling me, "Oh, he'll come around." This offense is going to be dog shit unless he turns it around, and I don't know if he can.
It's scary. You're talking about a 5-tool guy, still leads the team in steals with 12, power, speed, up for the MVP for 2 straight years. But now going back to last year when that weird report came out about was he on roids or not. Nothing was ever found. He was never found guilty of anything. But ever since then, he just, like I said, jumpy at the plate. Today, batting right-handed, he got robbed on that one play, or maybe it was yesterday, by Rickard in right field. But other than that, he's just some of these at bats, you shake your head. First and second, nobody out. Even if you just move the runner over, he's popping out. Everything's a pop out. And even Tom Hamilton says it a lot about watch his feet. He's not patient. When he gets a cookie or a fastball, he seems to be lining it down the right field line foul because he's ahead of it. Like Mercado today. I was watching a couple of his at bats during some late afternoon film study. Following mulching. I'm telling you right now, the dude was like making adjustments today on just waiting an extra beat on the fastball and lined a couple of balls, one down the left field line and the other one to right field. So if Oscar Mercado can do it, he's played 5 games in the majors, certainly Jose Ramirez can do it.
He's all in his head. He really is all in his head, and I don't know what they can do about it. Last week we talked about was it this week? These days go by. The Ty Van Berkelio quotes of "I'm not going to do anything different." Was that this week?
I believe so.
They lost to the White Sox.
The first game against the White Sox, yes.
Yeah, and Van Berkelio made his quotes basically saying that I do things a certain way, and I'm not going to change. And it was appalling to me that. The guy, this is the problem that I've had with this coaching staff in general is there's no new school thinkers on this coaching staff. They're all old school guys. For better or worse, that's what they are. And sometimes you might need another voice. And everyone was like, oh, wonderful. After we got shut out by the White Sox.
Reynaldo Lopez.
The White Sox.
Yeah.
And then they won 9-0 and scored 4. They scored 9 and 14 back-to-back. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, great. Oh, we scored 4. We scored 9 against the White Sox, who suck, and 14 against the Orioles, who suck. And then it was Friday night, 1 run. So everybody got all excited. Tito played that same lineup 3 days in a row and didn't play Mercado twice, which was beyond aggravating because the same manager who basically said, well, if he's not going to be here in April, we don't want him here in April in Cleveland to sit the bench. Well, in May in Cleveland, he's going to sit the bench. What's the difference? If Mercado's here, he should play. And so now they're,
Well, I think the pitching will see better pitching this week. And look, we just touched on it. The American League is not very good. But, you're going to see Brett Anderson on Monday. You'll see Frankie Montas on Wednesday. I think we're avoiding Blake Snell, which would be a break, but Charlie Morton is there. And then the Rays are doing a bunch of Glasnow's hurt, so he's out.
Correct.
Like that's huge. So the Rays are doing a bunch of these opener routines. They're basically down to like a 2-man staff with Snell and Morton, which is crazy. But that's how Tampa Bay is one of the teams. The great Kevin Cash, former Tribe bench coach. He wasn't the bench coach, was he? Bullpen coach. That's right. He and Tito always do their pranks on each other, and Andre Nada has a lot of fun with that on the broadcast. But so Brett, like I said, Brett Anderson, Montas, Charlie Morton. It's not like they're going to be seeing Jeffrey Ramirez and Gabriel Yanoa all weekend. So the A's and Rays always pitch, and we'll see how this week goes. But I definitely think the offense, obviously, like you said, jump started. But that was Manny Banuelos, and what about Luplow? We haven't even brought up King Jordan. I mean, this guy's like knocking the baseball around against lefties, which is kind of nice. But the question is, I found it interesting today. Tito didn't have Luplow in the lineup after he homered yesterday. He's played him against some righties and had Mercado instead. I think that's a Chernoff and Antonetti special today, don't you think?
I mean, it's a tough call because I wouldn't be surprised. Tito will never say it, and Antonetti and Chernoff will never say it. But these the way baseball is now is a lot of these front offices are handling the lineups and the rosters, and they're doing everything now, and the managers almost become immaterial. But here, I don't think these guys – I'm not saying they're afraid of Tito. I would never say that. But I think they have such respect for him, and he has such clout that he's still doing these things himself. So, no, I don't think that the front office got in his ear, but – I'm sure they had conversations of, we brought this kid up to play, so you need to play him kind of stuff. Luplow has been really good against left-handed pitching, and he should stay that way. They had no problem with Brandon Guyer only playing him against lefties the last 2 years, and essentially Luplow's just Guyer now, right? Excuse me, last couple years. Excuse me. But Luplow should strictly be playing against lefties. He should, unless there's another option where he has to play. He should pretty much only be playing against lefties. Mercado splits. When you look at him, he's much better against right-handed pitching than Luplow is. Well, at least their minor league numbers would come to show you. So I still believe Mercado should be playing every day if he's up here, or 5 to 6 days out of 7. And Luplow should be handling the lefties. Leonis Martin does not need to be playing against left-handed pitching either. I mean, it wouldn't kill them to play Mercado in center field against lefties and Luplow in right. That's something I think you'll see this week.
We did the lineup and some of the pieces with the outfield and DH. It's I don't know if you can win this way. I think Tito loves it. I think he loved, going back to I'm not saying going back to Jason Michaels and DeLucci, but some of the the Rajay Davis and Tyler Naquin, a lot of the mix and matching that he did, like you said, Guyer and Chiz. Right. He did that for a long time. And I think Tito loves it, but they've got to find that consistent right-handed bat. When Luplow plays, he's hitting cleanup. So it's not like, he's just a straight platoon and he's hitting 7th or 8th. I mean, he's hitting 4th against lefties. And I'm assuming tomorrow Luplow will hit 4th against Brett Anderson, and Mercado will probably move up in the order the way he was swinging the bat today.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I would be really happy to see Mercado play center tomorrow. 2 hits for Mercado today. The speed on the base pass, making things happen. Let's give him more action. We haven't really had that many opportunities to see him with his glove, which I'd like to see. But like I said, Leonis Martin. We have so many. We talked about this in the last podcast. There's so many guys on this team that are platoon types, and
too many.
Too many. Tito's got to do his best to mix and match, and I think that starts in the outfield. You got you got Luplow, you got Mercado. I'm not saying Jake Bauers is a platoon guy yet, but I still need to see more from him.
Oh, his at bats were terrible today. Terrible. So we'll have to see. All right, Dery Brothers Tribecast for another week here. Recording on Sunday night, May 19th. Tribe 4.5 back of the Twins after today's 10-0 win over the Orioles. Todd's going to tell you about Groove Ride. So many people were commenting about how good Todd looked this weekend, how in shape he is, and he owes it to, who's my guy, Yasimo? I mean, this guy must be this Zosimo. He's got to be money in the bank, this guy.
Not only is he the best and the nicest dude ever, he's one of the best dressed men I know. The guy's fantastic. But in all seriousness, they are this coming up Memorial Day weekend. It starts Friday at 6 a.m. through Monday at Memorial Day. You can get a 10-pack of classes for all 3 locations for $110. You can't beat that deal. And you can also get a 30-pack for $300.
Wow.
That's $10 a class for you and me, folks, even though I get that monthly unlimited deal. But in all seriousness, I do. Got to. But in all seriousness, they're a fantastic place. The 3 locations, you can check them out. Woodmere on Chagrin Boulevard, the shops at Van Aken, where I took my first ever yoga class this week with Hallie. She was fantastic. And downtown across from Perk Park, check them out, grooveride.com, GROOVERYDE.com. And check out that flash sale and tell them I sent you.
All right, so we're back here talking Indians baseball and injury update. I like this. Mike Clevenger, this has been kind of a weird story because, when we first heard about the injury, I was very skeptical based on the Indians' history of disclosing injuries that Mike Clevenger was going to be out a long time. And they said he wasn't even going to pick up a baseball for 2 months, and yet he picked up a baseball in like 3 weeks. And now Tito said today he's going to throw a couple more bullpen sessions, coming back from that back injury, and then would go out on a rehab start and could be back as early as June 7th. So that would be huge for this staff, which, like I said before, the guys are pitching pretty well, but to get Clevenger back when he was ringing up 100 on the gun, 98, 99 on the gun, and get him back this quickly, I think would be a huge boost.
I believe it was you who said on this podcast that he would not pitch the rest of the season.
Did I go that far?
Yes, you did.
All right.
Yes, you did.
Well, I'm glad I'm wrong.
The one who said he would be back.
Reverse jinx.
Yes, but anyways, listen, I make many busted-ass calls myself, but to get him back would be gigantic, to say the least. The way he would pitch the first 2 starts of the season, he was borderline untouchable. He was fantastic. I'm ready for Clevenger to come back, obviously. It was interesting. They put him on that 60-day DL thinking there'd be no way he'd be back before 60 days, and he's going to be coming back right as the day on that 60th day, which will be really good. What's interesting is we talk more about the Clevenger injury than we talk about the Kluber injury, almost as if Clevenger it's not almost as if. I believe he's become a better pitcher and more important right now. I know that's blasphemy to some people, but if you go back to the middle of last season and you compare the two, I don't think you can say that Kluber's been a better pitcher than Clevenger. I don't, despite the fact that the manager would tell you otherwise.
No, I mean, Mike Clevenger is legit. And, it's funny listening to Hammy today talking about Bieber saying he's one of the better young pitchers in the game. But you look at Clevenger, who's got a longer track record than Shane Bieber. And like you said, was it the home opener that Clevenger pitched where he was throwing smoke? And I know it was cold and everything else.
Yes,
but
he was. I was there.
But, and look, Jeffrey Rodriguez has been fantastic. You like what you saw from Pletka. There's just some depth there, which is nice, And I don't know if one of those two guys. I don't think they're trading Rodriguez, but Pletka could be a guy that you deal at the deadline. I know I'm way ahead of myself here for a bat.
Listen, I don't think he has much. I don't think you get much for him. I don't think he's worth all that much.
No, but in this
filler. I mean, he is what he is. He's the 6th starter.
But I like him. He gets people out.
Sure. A team like, who would probably be where he would probably be great? San Diego.
Well, San Diego report, according to Ken Rosenthal, they've been calling about Bauer like left and right still.
What are we going to do about Bauer? That's another question.
A big start for him coming up this week against the A's. I think he's pitching Tuesday. I think he'll be fine. I do. I don't know what's going on with him. He's left balls over the plate that he hasn't, hittable balls. Usually with Bauer, it swings and misses, and when there's contact, it's a blooper here or a ball finding a hole. But guy's been driving the baseball. 4 of the last 5 starts, he hasn't been great. But you're right. You look up and you say, yeah, Pletko or Clevenger. Of course, you want Clevenger there. That would be a huge boost, and I think the guys in the dugout love him. And boy, oh boy, that would be a break. The Indians, we rarely get breaks when it comes with injuries. Look at Andrew Miller last year, and even Cody Allen. To get a healthy Clevenger back and slotted in that rotation would be awesome. That's why I still think, I know the Twins are playing well and they're beating up on everybody, but I still think the Indians have the better rotation, and with the way Minnesota's bullpen's been going, I think the Indians have the better pitching staff as a whole than Minnesota.
What about new Twins closer Austin Adams?
Is he closing? I thought that Morin kid was closing. Is that Austin Adams really? I mean, Minnesota's got a couple of guys right now that are just tearing it up. Now, Mitch Garver, their catcher, just went on the injured list too, but like Jorge Polanco's a star. He's hit like 340 with his OPS is over 1,000. We know about Eddie Rosario. He's a monster. That's the thing about the Twins. The lineup is scary, and the pitching's been very good. I mean, who would have thought Martin Perez would be this good? And Kyle Gibson was okay today, but Barrios is Barrios, and Odorizzi's been good. But I still like our staff better. But I think Minnesota's lineup is wholeheartely better than ours.
Yeah, that's not even up for debate, to be honest with you.
I mean, you're looking at Rosario, you're looking at Kepler, Marwin is up to 250. Jonathan Scope had 5 RBIs on Saturday. They put up 18 runs in Seattle the other day. I mean, they've been very good.
They just did a much better job of configuring their roster and taking advantage of the fact that they watched the Indians do nothing for the last 2 off seasons. And having Derek Falvey run their franchise, who knows how we operate, he smelled blood and he took advantage of it. Nelson Cruz, by the way, was put on the DL this week too. So
yeah,
that was a big loss for them. But CJ Cron's been decent. I mean, they've all these guys that they've made these moves on, other than Marwin's been the worst of the bunch, and he's starting to come around. But that's a good baseball team, and as I said earlier in the year, and I still believe it, all these games count, and we can't blow any of them, because come September, we're going to be playing meaningful baseball down the stretch.
And we've only played Minnesota 3 times at the start of the year, and then they're coming in here to Cleveland June, I believe it's 4th, 5th, and 6th. So in a couple,
4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, which should be a really good series. But yeah,
attending any of those games, I will be there on June 4th and June. Yes, I will be at 2 of those 3.
Those are going to be good games. They are a good team. And I was talking to somebody last night. I don't remember who it was. Might have been the great Eric Parsons, Dr. Eric Parsons. He's a listener, and he talked.
The pod, Eric Parsons.
Absolutely. I think he was talking about, and maybe it could end up being the wild card. We're accustomed to one thing, and that's winning this lousy division. As I always say, order restored. We should win this thing every year, as far as I'm concerned. But Minnesota's got a really good team. They catch the ball extremely well. I think they're number 1 in the league in defense. And we're farting around sometimes in the infield and booting some balls a little bit, especially on the left side. I'm surprised. I think Frankie's finally back to where he's in rhythm. Jose's another story, but Minnesota, they run the balls down in the outfield, and they catch the ball. And I think Rocco Baldelli's done a good job. I still believe I want to see Odorizzi and Gibson and Martin Perez do this for a full season before I get too carried away. Barrios is a beast, and their pen's having some issues. So that would be. We'll see how they do. They got to go to Anaheim this week, so they stay out west. Sometimes those West Coast trips, the long ones, teams start to fade a little bit. It's an opportunity for the Indians to be at home to make some hay. But the lead is 4.5. But I'm not panicking. I'm not going crazy yet. I want to see how they do against Oakland and Tampa this week before we start pushing any panic buttons.
Yeah, plenty of baseball left to be played, that's for sure.
All right, brother. This was fun, my man. Tribe taking care of business against the O's. Thank goodness. I got a little nervous there yesterday when you and I were in the synagogue, and I'm like, we're down 1-0 in the fourth. We have no hits. I'm like, oh my God. But now with the matchups this week, Carrasco against Brett Anderson on Monday, Bauer and Chris Bassett on Tuesday, and then Jeffrey Rodriguez and Frankie Montas on Wednesday. And like I said, I think it's Charlie Morton Thursday, but they're going to be doing a lot of that opener and bullpenning and all that crap. I think we're avoiding Blake Snell, which would be huge because he's supposed to pitch Wednesday against the Dodgers.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how it all works out and see if they slot Plutko in there again too. That would be interesting to see if he gets another start this week. And listen, hopefully we have another big week and keep the pressure on the Twins because that's what we're going to. This is going to, like I said, this is a marathon season, and it's a two-team race in the Central. The Indians just need to stay close.
By the way, speaking of the Central, the White Sox are better than I thought. Their lineup, they can really mash. The Royals have a couple of young guys. How bad is Detroit? Oh, my God, are they horrible.
How many in the row have they lost now?
They've lost 6 straight, and then today they were losing 5-3 in the 7th. And then it just started pouring at Comerica Park. My eye in the sky there, Albert Dale, was in attendance, and he said that they called it a little bit early, maybe to give the Tigers an advantage, because I guess Bob Melvin went out there like, it's not even raining yet, but then it turned out it started pouring, so they suspended the game. So how about this? They're going to finish the Tigers-A's game with the Tigers down 5-3 in the 7th in Oakland. It's Oakland's one trip here to Detroit. So they're going to finish the game as part of a doubleheader and play it out with the Tigers being the home team, and then they'll play the second game will be an A's home game. I've never heard that before, but that's apparently what they're doing.
Whatever, man.
Whatever, dude. It's like Ronnie Mund. But Oakland comes in winners of 3 in a row, so we'll see how it goes. So, all right, my man, what games will you be at this week?
I am going Monday night. I am going Thursday night. I'm going Friday night and Sunday afternoon.
You're not going to catch that. You're not going to catch that. That Wednesday afternoon businessman special.
I can't make it happen this week. I love those.
Yeah.
I cannot make it happen. I will. I'll be elsewhere.
Plenty of good seats available. All right, sir. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds good.
All right, there it is. Dery Brothers Tribecast for another week, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week.